Hello and welcome to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We are reaching you live from Abuja. I am Olajide Bello. First, the headlines. Federal government targets $1 trillion economy, launches economic and financial framework.
We have been uniquely blessed and positioned to change the trajectory of our nation.
House of Representatives organizes Open Week to engage citizens and policy formulation. Respondent examines target ban of single-use plastics by federal government. The federal government has launched a new initiative to establish an operating model and framework for economic and financial inclusion to transform Nigeria into a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Vice President Kashim Shettima said the initiative symbolizes the commitment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration to enhance financial and economic inclusion across Nigeria. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
The project, designed to combat poverty and promote sustainable economic growth from the ground up to set up an operating model for economic and financial inclusion. Vice President Kashim Shettima noted that the idea is to provide access to capital and reduce poverty through legislative interventions and critical policies.
I urge each of you involved in this initiative to recognize the weight of your responsibility. We have been uniquely blessed and positioned to change the trajectory of our nation from a nation rich in potentials to reality. You have all been entrusted with the vital national assignment, and I have full confidence that you will bring your best efforts to ensure its success.
Since the signing of the accord, a lot of engagement has been going on. We appreciate the fact that we were able to source funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, under their partner, which is the Lagos Business School, whereby they are funding the operationalization of the accord itself.
Since 2015, we've been running an initiative called the Sustainable and Inclusive Digital Financial Services Initiative. And that has been around how do we catalyze financial inclusion in Nigeria. And we've worked in the space of research, advocacy, capacity building, as well as just information and engagement.
The project manager seeks to identify the right platforms and structures aimed at galvanizing the relevant authorities to key into the initiative. Federal government had on April 25, 2024, unveiled the ASO Accord on Economic and Financial Inclusion, a blueprint designed to achieve universal access to financial services. From the State House, Abdurrahman Jibrila, NTA News.
Senate has set up an ad hoc committee to conduct holistic investigation of the oil and gas industry. Among terms of reference of the committee being chaired by Senate Leader Akpeyemi Bamidele are to check parameters used by NNPC Limited to examine shipment, direct sales, direct purchase arrangements, as well as timeline for completion or repair of government-owned refineries. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
A motion from Senator Asukwa Ekpenyong in relation to importation of substandard diesel into Nigeria opened the floodgates of concerns from lawmakers on some critical issues in the oil and gas industry, which over time remain unresolved.
Toxic emissions from the diesel contribute to respiratory illnesses and other health issues, as well as degrade engine life that would force consumers to deal with frequent vehicle and generator breakdowns with attendant higher maintenance costs.
Our refineries were under repair, and over $4 billion had been invested in this by government at different times. And we have been given different dates when these refineries will be up and running. And none of those dates had worked.
We have unbundled NNPC, but also at the same time tie their hands and they cannot do anything.
We demand that we need a major reform. Aid must roll in the Nigerian Petroleum Corporation and even other agencies of the government that are saddled with this responsibility.
The impact on the economy and tackling the problems will in the next 3 weeks preoccupy members of the committee.
We may have to go into even the issues of the act, the PIA. We must look back at the PIA. We have a right as a parliament. Don't we have the right? We have the right to look back and see whether the thing is working for us or not.
Senator Danjuma Goje, in another motion, wants the federal government to have a second look at the Renewed Hope Legacy Infrastructure Road Project map because the entire Northeast region has been excluded.
This has stimulated unprecedented concerns and agitations from the region in view of the strategic roles these projects will play in this country.
While we are very anxious about the coastal road, the low-hanging fruit is to also start the Akwanga Jos to Gombe.
It will not be complete if the entire people of Northeast and Plateau particularly do not have a means of getting to the federal capital.
Senate, in the meantime, has suggested the use of technology to detect terrorists, insurgents and other criminals in their hideouts as they condemn and mourn victims of the recent suicide bomb attack in Goza, Borno State.
This time around, the Nigerian Army and other security forces responded promptly and gallantly. In fact, one soldier lost his life and a civilian JTF when they confronted the fifth suicide bomber that detonated the bomb and killed the three of them there.
The resurgence of suicide bombings, having consigned it to the dustbin of history in the last 5 or 6 years, is very, very unfortunate.
It costs nothing for the intelligent army to get devices in their phone. As I'm here, I check my phone regularly and I know the number of guns that are very close to me here.
I also want to call on Mr. President to continue what he's doing. I know what he's doing. I know he's meeting every day, he's working, having sleepless night to show that, to make sure that this country becomes safe from terrorists and bandits.
Lawmakers urged the National Emergency Management Agency to assist those affected by the incident. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
President Bola Tinubu has charged the executive and legislative arms of government to create more channels for Nigerians to voice their concerns and participate in policy formulation. This was his message to the Legislative Open Week organized by the House of Representatives. National Assembly correspondent Mitairi Ikben reports.
To recognize the 27 to 2011.
Citizens are given access to the National Assembly for the Open Week of the House of Representatives.
An open parliament is the cornerstone of a thriving democracy.
Speaker Tajuddin Abbas says it is a unique opportunity to engage directly with the public and promote accountability.
By opening our doors, we invite scrutiny and dialogue, which are essential for improving governance and strengthening democratic institutions.
To engendering a more inclusive and democratic legislative process.
When citizens are engaged, they become active partners.
President Tinubu's representative, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, emphasizes that national challenges require greater citizens' engagement.
We must engage through town hall meetings because not all citizens have the means to come to Abuja.
Ministers and former presiding officers of the House could not agree less.
If anybody has anything more efficient or effective, let us debate it.
The necessity for engagement and talking with the people at all times is an absolute necessary ingredient for a healthy democratic journey.
Because it gives
people information of what is going on rather than hearing on the airwaves.
And at forums like this, I suggest, Mr. Speaker, that nothing should be off limits.
Over 65% of our people that are living below the poverty line. So standing here to make any excuses about our salaries, about our allowances, will not be entertained by Nigerians.
1 year scorecard of the House was unveiled to the public, revealing the passage of 89 bills, including the Federal Audit Service Act Amendment Bill 2023 to strengthen financial oversight and transparency.
For 3 days, the 10th House of Representatives will be open to citizens' scrutiny and interactions, and everyone expects that these interactions will touch the issues that touch the masses. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikpen, NTA News.
The 52nd Ordinary Session of Ecowas Mediation and Security Council at the ministerial level is underway in Abuja. Garba Natala reports that the participants include ministers and ambassadors of Ecowas member states to harmonize viewpoints on issues of regional security in the sub-region and the Sahel.
Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, chairs the Security Council meeting. However, the President of ECOWAS Commission, Omar Aliyu Taure, highlighted that in the past 1 year, the region has had about 800 terrorist incidents and recorded 7,000 deaths, with Mali and Burkina Faso mostly affected.
It is therefore crucial for every country within ECOWAS, including those in the Sahelian belt, to understand that the fight against terrorism is not the burden of a few, but a collective responsibility. We must therefore remain united and demonstrate unvacillating commitment and resolve to safeguard the lives and futures of our citizens and community.
It is the dire consequence of the disintegration on the citizens that informed the decision of the authority under the leadership of President Tinubu to open dialogue with the three countries with a view to maintaining the unity of ECOWAS. Thus, in addition to lifting sanctions, the ECOWAS authority at their last session directed that the 4 countries in transition be allowed to participate in technical, consultative, and sectoral meetings of the region.
Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Simayo, pledged UN's support to national regional efforts to ensure peace and stability, strengthen democracy, and good governance, with emphasis on economic empowerment. Afterwards, recommendations are expected to be submitted to their principals ahead of the 65th Ordinary Session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government for necessary action on 7th July. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Natala, NTA News.
Nigeria's Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Action, Ajiri Ngelale, has hosted the leadership of the United Kingdom Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility, UKNAIF, for a briefing to align the partnership with President Bola Tinubu's plans for private sector-led, public sector-enabled green industrial development. He also held a virtual discussion with the Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, Center for Nature and Climate, Gim Hay, during which they agreed to actionable next steps that will ensure greater collaboration with international investors in accordance with Nigeria's Green Industrial Roadmap. Similarly, the Special Presidential Envoy and his team also hosted a fruitful session with a delegation from the German Embassy, led by its head of climate negotiations, Ambassador Johannes Lehn. Specific steps towards deepening collaboration on hydrogen and wind energy development were agreed upon, with a follow-up next week. This is the news at 10 on NTA News 24. More reports when we return.
From the creeks of the Niger Delta to the breathtaking scenery of the plateau, in noonday and nighttime, we set out to bring to you captivating stories that evoke your emotions. For fascinating documentaries and reports on day-to-day issues with expert analysis, tune in to NTA News24, DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, StarTimes Channel 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703.
Thanks for being there. To further expedite the process of expanding consumer credit access to Nigerians, President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of the following qualified Nigerians to the board of the Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corp. Otumba Aderemi Abdul has been appointed as board chairman, independent non-executive director, Engineer Uzoma Wagba as managing director, chief executive officer, Aisha Abdullahi, Executive Director, Credit Risk Portfolio, Olanike Kolaole, Executive Director, Operations, Dr. Armstrong Ume Takang, Non-Executive Director, Nominee, Dr. Peter Nwegbu, Non-Executive Director, NIMC Nominee, Mohammed Nasiru Abbas, Non-Executive Director, FMITI Nominee, Marvin Nada, Non-Executive Director, FCCPC Nominee, FMF Representative, Non-Executive Director, FMF. A statement by the President's Special Advisor, Media and Publicity, Ajurin Ilale, says the President expects the new members of the board of this pivotal institutional vehicle to bring their vast experience, competence and dedication to bear in their functions to achieve Credit Corp's mandate of accelerating access to consumer credit to millions of Nigerians. With an increase in recycling business, waste collectors call for establishment of more processing centers for easy access. Let's join Alika Opanachi Arwa on Business News.
Amid global efforts to tackle climate change and environmental degradation, experts say proper disposal of refuse, especially plastic waste and cans, is necessary. They observed that more plastic recycling factories will reduce cost of transportation and increase profits for collectors.
In some other countries, there are regulations in place to ensure that recycled plastics form a certain percentage, sometimes 25%, sometimes 30% of the whole input into manufacturing of new plastics. This way, this creates a new industry altogether so that the economy expands as it relates to circular economy.
If we're talking about circular economy, it means we must change the business models we use for manufacturing. And if we're going to change those business models, we must look at the entire supply chain from the point where we create value to the point where we deliver, to the point where we capture, to the point where we deliver to customers. So everyone needs to be on board. And in fact, specifically at the grassroots level, because we have such a huge informal sector, a lot of awareness is required to make people understand what it even means to recycle plastics.
They also said failure to formalize waste recycling sector deprives the country an estimated value of 32 million tons of waste generated yearly and complicates environmental pollution. With Business News, Alika Opanachi Arua.
Over 38 million Nigerian farmers will benefit from a crop-to-cash initiative aimed at supporting smallholder farmers in solving most of their challenges. This was disclosed at the relaunch of the National Hotline for Agriculture held in Abuja. Suleiman Abdul Wahab reports.
Crop-to-Cash, a non-governmental organization, has been assisting Nigerian smallholders farmers with their immediate needs. According to Michael Ogundari, the founder of Crop-to-Cash and his team, farmers can only put a call to them through a national hotline agriculture.
You can ask me any question about growing your crops and improving your farm. What would you like me to help you with today?
Are you sure? The work that we're doing at Crop-to-Cash involves working with a lot of different partners. We are working directly with the GSMA Innovation Fund, and they are also connected to the different telecommunications providers that we have in the country, of course, which are also linked to the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy. So our work beyond, just getting connected to the telcos themselves, we're also connected across the entire agricultural value chain to the big players working in making sure that, smaller farmers can get high quality inputs, and all the services that they need.
It's super amazing each time they come out with a new innovation, and to see tangible results and to see that these farmers are actually benefiting from it, and they're not just launching something that is not useful for the farmers.
There are different reasons for food scarcity, and sometimes it's linked to input, sometimes it's linked to weather advisory, not knowing when to plant, what to plant, and then what to apply. But in the long run, if farmers have access to the information they need, quality inputs, and they're able to get all this at a very cheap and low rate, I think it's going to help them actually plant more and ensure that there is high yield and overall less food scarcity.
Many smallholder farmers who have benefited from the ingenuity also expressed by saying they are now great extent farmers, courtesy of Crop to Cash initiative.
At least they have come to my farm now more than 6 times. This year they have come to my farm. They saw my yam farm, over 2 acres of land.
They call on Nigerian farmers to take advantage of the offer to advance and increase their agricultural productivity. In Abuja, Suleiman Abdul-Wahab, NT News.
Kenyan activists rethink protests after deadly violence as hoodlums loot shops. Details with Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Activists leading Kenya's anti-government protests are re-evaluating their approach after demonstrations were overshadowed by violence and looting. They worry these incidents could jeopardize the movement's credibility and its efforts to pressure President William Ruto to resign. The activists claim that the violence was instigated by goons hired by politicians to discredit the legitimate protesters or further their agendas. Some activists have called on social media to cancel the next planned demonstration on Thursday. The Interior Minister said criminals were taking advantage of the planned protest to commit arson and terrorize Kenyans. He warned that they were planning more violence on Thursday and Sunday, that the government was determined to stop them at whatever cost. Last week's protests were deadly as police opened fire, and according to the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, the 2 weeks of protests have left 39 people dead, though President Ruto on Sunday put the number at 19. The president has offered to have dialogue with Kenyan youth and has promised budget cuts on travel and hospitality for his office in line with some of the protesters' demands. As unemployment remains high and prices rise, there has been outrage over the luxurious lives of the president and other senior officials. Members of the youthful but leaderless protest movement have said they do not trust the president to implement his new austerity plans. As it is, Kenya's main opposition party on Tuesday called on Ruto's government to take full responsibility for the deaths that occurred last week.
And on sports, Nigeria's Super Falcons depart for their Paris 2024 Olympics training camp today, and former Eagles boss Finidi George lands new job at Rivers United as new team head coach.
The Super Falcons will leave the country for a 2-week camp in Seville, Spain, ahead of their participation at the women's football event of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. The Games will be held from July 26 to August 11th, and Nigeria are returning to the women's football event since last featuring in 2008. The Falcons' list for the tournament was announced on Wednesday by the NFF. Super Falcons head coach Randy Waldrum on Wednesday named 18 players and 4 others as alternates for the women's football event, with notable omissions and 2 surprise inclusions. Some of the notable omitted players are Saudi-based defender Ashley Plumter, who hasn't recovered in time from his surgery, as well as defender Gloria Ogbonna, who was part of the 2023 World Cup squad in Australia and New Zealand. Atletico Madrid forward Rasheedat Ajibade, goalkeeper Chiamaka Nadozie, and Asisato Shuala lead the 18-player roster. The 9-time African champions Nigeria will tackle Brazil, Spain and Japan in that order at this year's tournament. Meanwhile, former Super Eagles coach Finidi George has taken up another managerial job at Nigeria Premier Football League side Rivers United barely 3 weeks after resigning as the head coach of Nigeria's men's senior national team. Finidi was announced as the head coach of the 2022 MPFL champions on Wednesday, with an unveiling set to follow on Thursday. Finidi left his role as Super Eagles head coach in June after 2 games in charge. Before taking the Super Eagles job, Finidi spent 2 full seasons and almost completed a third, with Aimba leading them to their record 9th MPFL title in 2023. He takes over leadership from head coach Evans Ogain, who guided the club until the end of last season after the dismissal of long-serving Stanley Iguma. In tennis, Yannick Sinner was the winner of an epic Italian showdown on centre court as he defeated Matteo Berrettini to reach the 3rd round at Wimbledon. The world number 1 needed 3 tie-breaks to triumph 7-6, 7-6, 2-6, 7-7 in a closely contested encounter that ended just 27 minutes before the All England club's 11 p.m. curfew.
Game, Samat, Sinner.
And that concludes the news at 10 on NTA News 24. Thanks for watching. I am Olajide Bello.